This week on Filthy Hope.
A difficult thing for me to come to terms with is that things that I view as very extreme and very, I was going to say left or right, but not with any political meaning behind those two words, of centre, like so far off the beaten track of like hateful, extreme views aren't actually that extreme.
Yeah.
And that I find that really, really confronting, whether it's political or religious or otherwise, coming to terms with the fact that extremism is on the rise, has been on the rise for a long time.
Yeah.
I find really, really worrying and disheartening because I don't know what to do about that and like what can one person do about that. I often go back to something that Simon Hansford told us a couple of years ago on this podcast, that our only job as Christians is to be an advocate of hope.
Yeah.
Welcome back to a very special Christmas episode of Filthy Hope. If it's your first time here, welcome. On this show, we spend time in the grey spaces where Jesus, life and culture intersect. It's Christmas Eve, and I'm your host, Pastor Jonty, and I'm joined by Rev Ness.
Hey, nearly Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Isn't it cool?
It feels like yesterday we were recording our Christmas episode for last year.
I remember it very well.
Yeah.
It's extraordinary, isn't it?
Yeah. And for people that are listening, I had a great conversation with a friend of the show, Odd Rev, as we do, where he was just mentioning how he quite likes when you can hear background noise in podcasts.
Yeah, well, tell me what's going on.
Lean in and go, I wonder what's going on.
Yeah, there we go.
We've got a play group happening downstairs, so if you hear kids running around...
That's what's going down.
It's just adding to the festive vibe of this episode.
One of the missions of the church.
That's right.
We love the kids. We had them in a petting zoo last Friday at church, and it was just a full event, 100-odd people and parents and children, and really dodgy looking one chicken.
Yeah.
That
kind of feral looking.
Kind of looked like it had COVID. It was not looking, or SARS or something. It wasn't looking well.
SARS.
And the little, the goats didn't look healthy. Nobody looked terribly well in this petting zoo that I had. I feel like we kind of got ripped off. But the kids loved all the little duckies and all the little guinea pigs and all the bits. And in Woollahra, you probably can't pet a goat, you know.
Not very common.
Not common.
Down Queen Street. Yeah.
Well, there's goats that walk up and down Queen Street, but you don't pet them.
Well, they're behind the front wheel of cars.
Yeah. Bentleys. That's right. That was rude. That wasn't in the spirit of Christmas.
Whatever.
That was dodge.
You cut me off in a Lambo, I'll have something to say about it.
Yeah, that's...
Because you know they're not going to leave a note either.
No, you know that Lambo stands for Lamborghini.
Yeah.
I only found that out from a kid in scripture. Yeah. You know something that upset me at the Christmas festivities that we had with all these kids? We'd bought all these most incredible gifts to have like a lucky door event, and I asked Rachel, who was singing with Sterling, if any time they launch into Frozen, Let It Go, and the kids start dancing, then we pick the best kids and they can come up on the platform and pick anything that they want. I reckon there was 40 things up there that kids could pick from, and they were great presents, right? So we're singing Jingle Bells, Jingle Bells, and then they launch into Let It Go, Let It Go, and I'd prepped all the kids, when you hear this, when Rachel starts singing that, you start dancing, and they're all dancing, boys and girls and mothers and fathers, everybody. It was quite hilarious, beautiful really. And then one of my little mates, she picked, comes to my scripture class, and he came up and I said, oh, buddy, here, you can pick anything you want. I was so excited because I knew him and I love him, and he's just a top little kid. You pick anything you want. He said, oh, thanks, Rev Ness, that's really cool. Came up and I'm waiting, and they start singing again, and we're back to the festivities. And he's taking an awful lot of time, picking up things, looking at the things, and then he turns to me and he says, nah, nothing I want. And I said, are you sure, mate? Have you? He said, no, nothing moves me. And I thought, wow, can you imagine having everything in the whole world and you've got an opportunity to pick something fabulous and you live in Wallara and nothing moves you and you're 8. I just had no words, Jonty.
Yeah.
I didn't know what to say, how to respond. This was not in my... I had nowhere for the information to land in my head. I was really shocked. He wasn't upset at all. He just said, no, that's okay. I'll have some fairy bread. Do you want some fairy bread with me, Rev Ness? So we ended up going over and doing fairy bread and seeing how much we could shove in our face at the same time and eat it.
Fair enough.
And I thought, whoa.
I kind of empathise with that kid because I remember like it would have been maybe even 10 years ago now, that long ago, having what I felt at the time was quite uncomfortable for me, conversation with my parents about the gifts that my extended family give us.
Yep.
And I was kind of getting to an age where I was like, I don't need stuff, because I'd get a whole bunch of just like
socks,
trinkets and this thing that's made of plastic that I'll never use and yada, yada. And like they're all like chosen specifically for me. They're not like thoughtless gifts, but I was kind of like, I don't want them, but I also don't need them, and they're just going to end up in landfill like next week.
Yes.
I don't want to have that conversation with my auntie and my uncle and my grandparents and blah, 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 blah. So I think my parents must have, because that stopped.
Oh, wow. And then you just didn't do any presents then?
No, still, like they were like additional to like...
Okay, like stocking stuffer stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
the stuff that you just kind of chuck in.
Crapola.
I kind of like... I kind of empathize if you don't want it.
Yeah, I suppose that's a really good lens to view it through, Jonty.
But I also don't know what the gifts were that he was
there was
picking
some pretty cool stuff. You know, there was a boy-girl stuff. There was, a whole range of different gender stuff there. So it wasn't all just chick stuff. Anyway, that was just him, and I was surprised. Anyway, Christmas time. But I have another great Christmas story, which is the total antithesis of that one.
Yeah, great.
So I did a pulpit swap with my Reverend brother, John Humphreys.
Who's been on the show a number of times.
Good friend of ours. Yeah. And I went to St Matt's at Balcombe Hills. What a stunning group of people. 2 big services and lovely people. And I was really nervous to go and preach over there because there's a whole lot of retired ministers that hang out in that joint. I'm going, oh man, what am I going to teach these dudes? They've been doing it for 30, 40 years. How am I going to tell them anything about John the Baptist that I don't already know? Because that was the reading that week. Anyway, in John's service, he does this thing that's called, before the news, that's called learning together. And he does this learning with the children and with the adults. And he does, not a kid's story per se, but some kind of learning. That was the remit that he gave me.
Yeah.
I went, okay, what can I do about that? That was interesting. How John the Baptist, how can I link that? Anyway, I chose not to do any linkage. There was going to be no children in this early service at 8 a.m. So what I did was I got a whole lot of little boxes, just really small little boxes. I had my ladies in my Bible study stuff them with fake hay, and I bought all these tiny little Cupid doll baby Jesuses. They were tiny, half the size of my, the first knuckle on your pinky finger, that little. Yeah. Put it in the box and then tied it up like a present with a bow on it, wrapped 4 ways on the box. So these tiny little boxes, and I had all these little boxes, and I had one I decided we'll give them to the men, because often the women get the presents in the church. I thought, I'm going to give the boxes to the men. But I started by saying, they didn't know I had the boxes. I started by saying, oh, it's Christmas, it's so exciting, isn't it beautiful? What's the greatest present you've ever been given? And then they started unpacking the greatest present. And they were a very mature crowd. They answered the question very differently to the children that I'd asked the same question to earlier in the week. And one husband said, Mary, my wife, and she said, oh, that's Craig, you're my greatest gift. And then we did a bit of that, and I heard what their greatest gifts were, and then I told them about what one of my favourite gifts I was ever given, and shared that with them, and we all had a good laugh. And then I segued into handing out these little boxes to all the men, and I said, I just want you to remember, in the hustle and the bustle of the Christmas season, when you might be getting things out of perspective or you might be rushing and busy, I want you to remember the reason for this very festive season. It's right in front of you. The greatest gift you'll ever be given. Then I shut up, and for me it's quite hard to shut up. So I just went silent and I said, fellas, you can open your little present that I've got for you. And there was like this beautiful hush that went across the whole church, and the men opened them up and you could hear the wives and the women saying, what is it? What is it? And the men were saying, oh, it's baby Jesus. And I just listened. I wanted to jump in and say a million things, but I resisted and just let them have this moment with this little present, this gift at Christmas time. And from that, then we segued into a song and then into a sermon. It was really a beautiful moment.
Nice.
So we need to remember in the midst of it all why we are celebrating. So talking about celebration.
Yeah.
Can I ask you something?
Sure.
I want to know two things. Because, festive time is about food often.
Yeah.
Well, I want to know two things. What's the food that you love the most on the event and the thing you wish there wasn't? Yeah. And why the heck does it keep turning up every bloody Christmas? Because it's so yuck.
Yeah.
What is it?
I can tell you my favourite straight off the bat.
Yeah.
Is a good potato salad.
Oh, stop it.
And I'll describe this for you because I think I've clearly hit a sore spot because I know you hate potato salad.
Oh.
It has to be sour cream, no mayonnaise.
Right.
Mayonnaise can get in the bin. It has to be cool, if not cold, sour cream with potato with...
Can you do the vomit emoji on the screen now?
Plenty of greenery in there as well. I don't know why. I've just always loved potato salad. Conversely, shit potato salad really annoys me because of how much I love a good potato salad. So like warm mayonnaise in a potato salad, absolutely not.
Oh,
get in the bin.
Get behind me, Satan.
That's right. I'm also, and I want to clarify this by saying that I hate eggplant anyway.
Yep.
It's a little bit of a mythologized story in my family.
Yeah.
That someone in my extended family brought a Greek yogurt and roasted eggplant dish.
Sounds interesting.
I hate eggplant anyway.
Yeah.
I did my best.
Yep.
Had a crack.
Yeah, and?
I found it almost inedible. So... I don't know if you're listening, but I'm sorry.
Can you please not bring that next this year?
It just do because I'm sure other people ate it, but it just wasn't for me. So I'll be avoiding that one. What about you?
What's your favourite though? What's your favourite? Oh,
potato salad. Oh. Yeah. I'm a big turkey fan.
Oh, you love a turkey. Do you do gravy?
Yeah, we do gravy, but I'm more of a cranberry sauce guy.
Yeah, same. Yeah. That's so interesting. Well, my favourite, of course, is the very first glass of champagne or Prosecco. Super cold.
Yeah.
Like it's got to be so cold.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing I really care about is that first one.
Yeah.
Because it's the best one. First one, after church, get home, get ready to do Christmas lunch, put on the apron, prep, get ready. Oh, amazing. The worst thing is potato salad. I just think I would not eat potato salad on any other day of the year. Why on earth would you serve that crap to guests? Potato salad.
I do eat it during the year.
Look, Jonty, it's gross. It's just like the grossest food. The green chunks in it, all of it.
Cucumber.
Warm egg on Christmas.
Yeah, I'm with you on the egg. I'm with you on the egg thing.
I would have had to have had half a bottle of champagne to endure a potato salad. I just look at it and kind of go, no. Who brings that?
I'm 100% with you on the mayonnaise and egg thing.
Yeah, no.
Absolutely.
Can't do it.
Yeah.
Maybe just a good roast potato in garlic and onion, double baked.
So you just had me a potato.
Yeah, and then a scoop of sour cream.
See, in my brain, sour cream on a roast potato isn't a million steps away from a good potato salad.
Oh, it's so many steps away. Because your shit sat in a fridge or on a bench and it's come in a car and it's swooshed around in a 35 degree.
Mate, straight out of the fridge on a hot day. It's cool. It's a little bit like, day old lasagna. Where it's better having been in the fridge.
Yes.
It's had that fridge experience where it's kind of like coagulated together a little bit.
Jonty, I can't.
It's the best.
Thank you for joining us today because
Bit
I'm just going off for a vomit.
Bit of paprika. I will say though, your Prosecco thing,
cold
very
glass.
similar.
To your beer.
Christmas Eve, and it's very specific, and it's partly there's an inside joke with people that know about this guy on the internet that has a VB long neck at 8 o'clock in the fucking morning.
Oh dear, you just said the F word on Christmas Eve.
Oh, sorry, God.
Oh, good heavens.
Sorry, Jesus.
That gave me a shock.
That's a quote. I'm allowed to quote
on Christmas Eve.
of course
we are. I forgot about that. Yeah. You should put up the quote fingers though.
That's right. Yeah. Well, so there's a tradie that is sitting in a, and that's not even the worst word he uses in this.
Okay,
but there's a tradie
that's enough for today,
who talks about how he has a VB long neck at 8 o'clock in the morning. And if you're a real Aussie,
that's what you do.
You get one of these up you. So, so on Christmas Eve, me and a couple of mates of last 2 or 3 years have had a VB long neck, and that's after tools down after 3 or 4 days. Of volunteering at a Christmas program.
Massive.
I almost look forward to that Christmas Eve friend's house with about 20 other mates. Love Actually on in the background.
Yeah.
VB long neck. Sip on that. Nice and cool.
It's the best.
The summer. It's the best.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear you on that. I can relate to that completely.
How do you feel about eggplant? Just out of curiosity.
I like eggplant. Yeah.
See, I just don't get it.
I can do it. I like it a lot.
It's like a shit zucchini.
It is. It's like an.
And also, I don't like zucchini.
Oh, I love zucchini. Yeah.
Actually, a grilled, like a well cooked grilled zucchini on the barbecue, pretty
amazing.
Good. I think I've been traumatized by like veggies, including zucchini, that have just been like boiled in the microwave to oblivion, and like soft, mushy zucchini.
Why would you even eat that?
Yeah, it's the worst.
Yeah, not
so I think that's tainted my zucchini and eggplant experience.
Yeah, you need to refresh that. I won't be refreshing, or am not open to refreshing the idea of potato salad.
That's fair enough. You're missing out.
Okay.
More for me. That's fine.
Yeah, go you. Yeah, whatever.
So because it's Christmas, we thought we'd also have a quick chat about, because I know you're a Hallmark Christmas movie person, right? So I thought we'd talk about some Christmas movies.
Yeah.
Take me through it. What's the obsession and what?
As soon as they come out on Netflix, brother, I'm on.
Yeah. Any good ones that you've seen?
Look, you know the thing I'm most disappointed about this year is I think because maybe I'm just maturing, right? And I've watched so many. They run a pattern. There's a total pattern to them, and it's usually a bakery. There's a bakery, a woman in a bakery, and she falls in love with somebody at Christmas, or there's a woman in a dress shop. That's one that I watched the other day. She's a stylist, and a prince comes to town, and we don't know that he's a prince, but he's got this lovely English accent. And
accent's the giveaway.
It's the giveaway. He's definitely a prince, and she goes and styles him for all the events at Christmas time or the lead up to Christmas, and they fall in love. And I don't know what it is about that crap, but I sit there. I suppose after a long year of deep theological thinking and reading hardcore theology, to sit and watch, it's like having junk food. I think it's like a Macca's run. That's what a Hallmark Christmas movie is for me. I can sit there. I actually get excited. Rob goes and does other things. He can't bear it. He just like rolls his eyes, and they all laugh at me now. The girls don't even engage anymore. They're mature and they've grown out of it completely. And it's just me and the cat and the dog, and my cup of tea and a box of tissues. It's just easy. It's going to be a happy ending. Someone's going to fall in love with someone. It's got boy meets girl, boy loses girl, boy gets girl. That's the pattern.
All at Christmas time.
All at Christmas. It's cold, so they're in nice jumpers and jeans, and there's fake snow set in a fake Canada. And I just love it. I really do. I put the aircon on high. I snuggle under a blanket on a 40-degree day. And I just really, it's just my thing, brother. Yeah. It's shallow, isn't it?
No, but like I know lots of people that are the same.
Yeah. So they don't admit to it though.
Yeah, sure they do.
Yeah, I don't.
Otherwise, they wouldn't keep making them because
I love it.
No one would watch them.
But I think I've done 3 already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you remember what they were called?
Christmas, Prince, Christmas, and the Girl.
Hallmark number 43.
So good. All on Netflix.
Okay. Yeah. So I also find it difficult to clue into this because I haven't ever watched a single one of them.
Yeah, please don't, because then you will take the piss out of me forever. Okay. At the moment, you just feel sorry for me.
Or if I do watch one, I won't tell you.
They're so lame. Look, they are lame, but I think if I equate it to junk food, it's just that. I don't have to think.
Fairy floss.
Yeah, it's just, and nothing bad happens.
Yeah.
So then I can escape into, I'm not tricked because I don't like scary bad stuff. And I can watch it for 90 minutes knowing that not one awful thing is going to happen. And I like that. That makes me happy and warm and fuzzy inside. It's like, yay, it's Christmas. That's funny.
That's cool, yeah. Are there any other like Christmassy movies that you have enjoyed over the years or that stand out? Because we talked about, actually I want to ask you about It's a Wonderful Life. Because I mentioned that's one of my favourites. Watching Jimmy Stewart's performance, which I don't know if you are aware that was his first role after coming back from World War II.
I didn't know that.
So I think he was a pilot. I'd have to double check that. So his performance is very, very raw. There's lots of emotional moments where you can actually like...
Yeah, it is.
There's real PTSD stuff coming through in his performance.
Interesting. I'll have to watch it with that.
So what was your take on it?
Rob loves it.
Yeah.
It's Rob's favourite. Rob grew up being raised by grandparents.
Yeah.
So post-war.
Yeah.
So he grew up with the big bands, and that movie I think was 1940-something.
Yeah, it's 40-something. I'm just double-checking.
Yeah, exactly. So Rob as a little boy, every Christmas with his grandparents that were acted like parents, Rob would watch that. So it is his all-time favourite movie, and he just loves it, and he gets really defensive if he suggests let's watch that, and I go, oh really? Can we just flick and watch a Netflix Christmas thing? And he says, how can you do that? How can you compare those two things? I said, oh well, he's right. I mean, one is a classic and one is junk food.
1946.
There we go. Yeah. So Rob loves it. It's his all-time favourite. Yeah.
My Blu-ray copy of it at home has a second disc that has like a colorized version.
Oh.
And I just think it's like, talk about it.
I don't think I've seen it in colour.
Talk about a sin that can't be forgiven. Like letting a kid draw all over your TV. Like, fucking don't touch it. It's a wonderful
bad?
life. It just, I recognise that I'm snobby and,
you can be a bit,
Yeah, I just
purist
think
when it comes to film.
Yeah, I just think don't touch it.
Yeah,
it's already perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I love It's a Wonderful Life. They're very similar to, like it's kind of a Christmas Carol-esque, that story, in the same way that there's, what's it called? A Matter of Life and Death, which is another British one, which is really, really great. Very similar to It's a Wonderful Life. I've actually just this year, I'm up to, at time of recording, I've watched the first 2 Harry Potter movies again. I'm going through all of them before Christmas. They all kind of have a festive vibe to them because up until the end, each of them are a year of high school at Hogwarts that all include Christmas in the middle of the
how
UK year. So I'm loving those because I grew up with Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone was the first novel that I read. Like I got that handed to me when I was 5 or 6 or something. The first like quote unquote chapter book that I read.
Year 5?
No. Age 5, so like kindy.
You read that in kindy?
The first, the little Philosopher's Stone novel. Yeah.
And your mum and dad let you read it? Mm-hmm. Christian kid allowed to read witchcraft?
Yeah.
Or should we save this for another topic?
That's a little carrot that we're going to dangle because in January we're going to talk about Wicked and witchcraft and Christianity and stuff like that. But yeah, so I'm that age, and there's millions of people my age who basically grew up at the same rate as those characters. So I read those novels. I remember I think it was my 10th birthday, I was given a handwritten license from my parents that allowed me to read the 4th book, because that's when it gets significantly darker. And I was 12 maybe when the last movie came out. And that was like a massive event.
Big deal.
Yeah, so I've been rewatching those.
Incredible.
Yeah, let us know. There's so many more. Like the note, I just wrote down some notes of the Gremlins movies. Those first two, the two Gremlins movies. That first one in particular is a great Christmas movie. I actually did a whole episode on Never Odd or Even with Odd Rev over on the Never Odd or Even podcast about Children of Men. Have you heard of this movie?
No.
With Odd Rev and Phil Newton, our friend, we talked about Children of Men being an underrated and undervalued Christmas movie. So for people that, and I won't spoil it, there'll be a link down below. You can go and listen to that whole podcast. It's one of my favourite films. It's by Alfonso Cuarón, who, weirdly enough, directed the third Harry Potter film, based on a novel, and it's a science fiction setup where the world, females have become infertile. So the human race has slowly been drifting off a cliff with no new humans being born. So the population gradually getting older and older and older and slowly dying off. We're like 20 years into that, I think, in the story. I can't remember because the novel and the movie are a little bit different. The story follows the main character who is tasked with escorting the first pregnant woman in however long across the country to safety.
Wow. What an interesting...
It's phenomenal. It's so good. And we basically just talked about it being a really, really interesting, nuanced depiction of the incarnation, because it's...
Oh, the Mary story.
The Mary story, the child being born into the world.
Wow, Jonty.
The saviour child metaphor.
Oh, see, I've got to go and see that now.
You'll love it.
Yes.
It's an action movie. It's pretty full on.
Killing?
Yeah, because you can imagine what... that the world has basically collapsed, and the UK is the last standing civilization.
Yeah, wow.
So there's lots of... It came out in 2006, but and part of what we talked about is how present it feels. There's all this stuff about refugees.
Oh, how
and
fantastic.
Asylum and detention centres for people seeking asylum, because the world's gone to shit and they're all looking for safety. And, it feels like a documentary.
Oh,
so
fantastic. Thank you for that review.
That's another recommendation. If people want to go watch it, I highly recommend it, but go and listen to that episode on Never Odd or Even. I talked about that with Odd Rev and Phil Newton.
Amazing.
Yeah, so let us know if you have any other favourite Christmas movies. I mean, there's a stack that we didn't touch on.
I do love the Tim Allen Santa falling off the roof stuff. Those classics.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're Santa Claus movies.
Have you seen Planes, Trains and Automobiles?
No.
Oh, okay, you'll love this. This is John Hughes, so the guy that made Ferris Bueller's Day Off, Breakfast Club, those classic 80s comedies. Steve Martin and John Candy.
Yes.
Both trying to get home for Thanksgiving and getting stuck like in the snow and having to travel together, and they hate each other, but over the course of the movie they end up...
Are they brothers?
No, they're strangers.
Oh, wow.
Hilarious.
Yeah, okay.
And a really, really sweet.
Oh, I'm going to have a busy festive season.
Home Alone's another favourite. I love those movies, those first two Home Alone movies. So many. I'm also a horror junkie, so there's Black Christmas and Krampus, and Terrifier 3 came out this year, which is a Christmas movie. There's lots of good stuff to get into if you're into
scary
as well.
Yeah. Oh, can't do scary, Jonty.
No, I know. Children of Men might be right on the edge of
scary.
Yeah, it's
my threshold.
Yeah, it's a thriller. It's an action movie.
Okay, I can watch it in the daytime.
Yeah,
when the lights are on.
Yeah.
Yeah, then I've got hours to debrief, and I can ring you and abuse you. Yeah.
So we might swing this conversation into a different direction.
Sure.
Because we're half an hour into this episode now. Probably we're talking about Christmas this year.
Yeah.
This is our third Christmas episode. So there's a lot of how do we talk about Christmas in a way that's interesting that we haven't already
we did
talked
something
about.
different this year.
Yeah, so tell me about
that. So we did something different in the church this year. Last year I participated in a Blue Christmas service and helped another Rev in the Uniting Church do the service, and along with a funeral director. And they've got this long, steep tradition at Balgala Uniting Church where they do this Blue Christmas service. And I went into it a bit sceptical because I didn't know much about how, why or what and why blue. And I was so moved by the liturgy and so moved by what I witnessed and the comfort that this specially crafted service created for people that are in grief. So I did one this year and it went beautifully. And it was a trial to see, A, if people would come, B, if they would engage, and C, how did it go? Well, it went really well, and it was just last week. And so what we did was I wrote the service and incorporated, it's like a Christmas service, knowing that at Christmas time it's full of joy, and we talk about joy and peace and hope and love. But in the midst of grief, when you're grieving the loss of a loved one, Christmas time could actually be a really tough challenge for you.
Yeah.
It could be really hard to find hope when you've just lost your partner or your dad or your grandpa or a friend. And so I crafted this service around that theme, but used Christmas and the idea of the baby Jesus being born and songs that people love, and built a service around it. We also got gifted this massive, it's probably a 12-foot live Christmas tree in our church, and it's been beautifully decorated and it smells lovely, and it's a big, gorgeous Christmas tree that we were gifted. And so I used the idea of when people came into church, we gave them a choice of a number of beautiful Christmas cards. Pick as many of these as you want, and I gave them all pens. And during the service, when I had Sterling playing music, they could write a Christmas card to their loved one that's no longer with them, and then post it into the tree, into this beautiful live tree that sits there. Well, is it alive? Well, I suppose it is still alive because it's drinking water. We posted I gave them then a time when they could do that. They could, at the same time, hang a Christmas ornament onto the tree. So I bought all these beautiful Christmas baubles that they could hang on the tree in memory of their loved one, and then post into the beautiful arms of the tree their Christmas card. And they could take a Christmas card with them and write. So I gave a big chunk of time for people to do this after I'd welcomed and greeted and talked about the hope and peace and love and joy at Christmas time, and talked about the Advent wreath, and we talked about why we celebrate the things that we do, and the fact that Christmas time for many people can really suck because of this grief piece. And it went really beautifully. Then in the service, I gave another opportunity to respond, and we do lots of prayer, so there's lots of praying. And then there was this responsive moment, and I had everybody's name of their loved one that had passed away, and I'd invited them to bring a memento or a photo of that person, and I'd set up a gorgeous table in front of the altar, and there was all these candles, so many candles set up, different heights, different shapes, in different locations on the beautiful table. And they were invited, as I called their loved one's name out, their full name, they could then come and light the candle for their person. And I built lots of time and beautiful music in and around this sacred moment of remembrance. And Jonty, I really like a funeral. I know I've told you that many times.
Yeah.
I like a funeral. I really can hold myself well in a funeral. I feel like I'm doing a very special thing for grieving people in this moment, and I'm able to hold my own personal emotions pretty well. And but this moved me on a whole nother level because it wasn't like a funeral. It was remembering in the light of the Christmas narrative. Oh, and I had tears rolling down my face. I had to keep my act together. It was very, very moving. And I think for families to hear their loved one's name said in public almost gives life to their memory.
Yeah.
So it was very beautiful, and it was reflective and soft, and we sang Silent Night, and then I blessed them, and I shared prayers with them, and then we left and we had supper together in the church, which was really beautiful because then we got to talk about their loved one. They got to then share and remember in a safe place where everybody in that room was grieving their loved one. So, you know, in a funeral, you go to the funeral and everyone's grieving that one person. This was a room full of people all having a memory grief moment about their person. And there was a sameness in the room for everybody. They were with people that were feeling similar emotions. It was really bloody special. I would definitely do it again. I'm going to mark it on the calendar as a thing that we do each year. One of my ladies who had lost her son died as a 9-month-old, and I know her really well, and I knew her son had died at 9 months of age, and I knew that was a part of her story. She turned up with a photo of her 9-month-old baby and placed it on the table. There was a whole new level of real for me in that. I got to see this precious child, and I got to see her connecting with God and this child and the memory, and having a moment in Christmas that was special with her loved one. I was just moved, deeply moved. Yeah.
Yeah, there's that.
The spirit showed up in a big way.
I'm paraphrasing, but there's that phrase that, like, you die twice. When you physically die, and then a second time, the last time someone on earth speaks your name. And so there is something very real about the way that we keep loved ones alive.
Yeah.
When we share memories about them.
Yeah, there was something that I hadn't realised the impact that saying their name out loud. It was almost like a bit of a jolt. I felt like people were jolted by hearing the name.
Yeah, because I think we like to, maybe it's not a defense mechanism, but a way of softening some of that, like,
maybe
emotional impact. We like to hold things a little bit in the abstract sometimes.
Yep.
Because it's probably easier to handle.
Yeah.
But by being really specific,
made it really personal.
Yeah, that's right.
Deeply personal.
Yeah.
And very real and very raw, but shrouded in the sanctity of the theme of love and peace and joy and hope. There was something, the Spirit moved in just ways that I didn't dream could possibly be a thing. Couldn't have dreamed that could have happened. But just giving time and space for this, it was very special. Yeah. I don't quite know how we did it, but we just did it, and then God showed up.
Yeah.
It's one of those.
I have also attended, I was actually on the team for another friend of the show, Danny, who's now PLC.
Yes.
Rev Danny Hemsworth Smith, did a Blue Christmas service at Paddo a couple of years ago.
I remember that.
And Tarmo uniting with Rev Phil Swain and Kevin Kim do that every year as well. And yeah, it's something that I'm surprised that more churches don't do.
Yeah.
Because my experience and my reference back from other people have all been only positive.
Yeah.
Because it is that weird, like, just reflecting on it as well personally, like I'm definitely experiencing that this time around with Christmas, that weird juxtaposition. It's almost like the universe doesn't care that you're grieving because the rest of the world...
Oh, we're having a party.
We're having a party.
Yeah. And you'll be happy now. Come on, that was 2 years ago.
It's this really bizarre...
Are you not over that already?
Exactly. It's this bizarre thing where the world... It's almost a little Job-esque, where it's just like the cosmic cruelty of like, your life sucks, this thing has happened that is you're grieving, but the rest of the world just doesn't care and is going on. It's really a really rude, difficult time for people when it's not just your family is celebrating, the whole world is celebrating.
Everybody, that's right.
Not just Christians, like it's a cultural holiday. Not for everyone.
No. Yeah.
Jewish people don't celebrate Christmas, for example, but like largely in the Western world, Christmas is a massive thing that is all encompassing for really an entire month.
Yeah.
So it becomes that cognitive dissonance of going, I'm feeling and experiencing this deep grief while the world around me doesn't reflect that.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's a really, really valuable thing for people to be able to go to a church service like that and to hold that tension and feel express that. Yeah.
And be allowed to feel grief in the midst of the joy of the season.
Yeah.
And just be that.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
And we need to be aware of that, because Christmas is not always a joyful time for people. Our story of the baby Jesus being born is definitely a joyful story, and absolutely, brings light and salvation into the world. So there's nothing but joy surrounding that narrative. But for the other individuals that's not front and centre of their mind because they're deeply in grief, we need to really hold that gently for people.
It won't have come out yet, it'll be coming out in January, but I've just recently recorded an episode with Rev Dr. Sunny Chen, and he spoke a lot about why he doesn't personally celebrate Christmas, which as a reverend is a very provocative thing to say. It's not that he doesn't celebrate Christmas, but he was basically identifying this kind of thing where we have this place on the calendar where everyone collectively kind of performatively celebrates.
Yeah.
And he kind of spoke about, when you look at the story as represented in Scripture, it isn't a big all-in celebratory thing. It happens on the outskirts at when it's dark, not during the daytime.
And it was a dodgy part of time.
That's right.
There was an unrest going on.
And so he kind of, the way he likes to personally reflect on, and obviously listen to this episode when it comes out, because we talk about it for much longer and more eloquently than I'm representing it here, but he looks at it as an opportunity for himself to reflect personally, quietly in his own prayer, more so than wanting to take part in some big cultural
demonstrative
expression.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, which I guess I would just encourage people that if that is something that you're really struggling with this year, that you kind of feel emotionally or physically or spiritually out of step with Christmas, you don't have to take part in all that stuff. You are allowed to step away and reflect and
feel
experience
how you
Christmas.
need to feel.
That's right.
That's right. And no rules.
Encounter the incarnation in your own heart, not necessarily in a way that has to take part in this big performative cultural expression.
And you don't have to do it on the 25th of December. You could do it any day.
And he was in Bethlehem on Christmas Eve. It's in the middle of winter. There's no grass. The shepherds wouldn't have been out there with their sheep.
Yes, that's right.
It's freezing. Definitely didn't happen on the 25th of December.
Definitely.
So,
yeah, super interesting.
Yeah.
There's a lot of unrest at that time, and I thought about, as I was preparing my message for Christmas Day, I was thinking, that beautiful song, Mary, Did You Know? It's a great song, and it's pumping out all over the Christian radio stations at the moment. It's been everywhere, and we sing it in church.
Listen to Uniting Heart and Soul Worship's version.
Yeah, we should put a link downstairs. I wondered, what actually did Mary know? We know a couple of things that she definitely knew about because it's in Scripture. And we know the things that the angel said to her, and we know what she replied, and we know that she visited her cousin. We know things. But what else did she know that's not recorded? Because I was thinking about it, Jonty. I come in and you say, "Hi, Ness, how are you? How was your day? What's going on for you at the moment?" And I give you a top surface level of what's going on. But underneath, there's a whole lot of other stuff that's gone on that I haven't told you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We all do that in life.
Yeah.
So the Bible hasn't recorded all the details that Mary knew. It's probably just given us the stuff that God thought was the most important stuff for us to know. But there would have been other detail that's not there, right? And for example, she gave birth. They don't give any detail about the birth, how it went, the position of the baby, was there a midwife, was there not a midwife, who cut the umbilical cord. They don't, how many contractions were there.
How long was she in labour?
We don't know any of that stuff. But what we do know is that happened because the kid was born. So we know, we can presume that there was a whole lot of stuff going on that she knew about that isn't recorded. So it had me wondering as to what else. And I don't want to make up stuff for the sake of making up stuff, but it was interesting to think of, because I'm trying to write a message to that's maybe different from other years that I've written the message, because I've done it quite a few times now. And I want to keep coming up with something fresh each year. And we all know the story. So I've looked at, my question is, what did she know? What do you reckon she knew that we don't know about, that's not overtly spelt out for us? Do you have any thoughts on that?
I just that it's a little bit like when, like in a couple of weeks, we're going to be talking about Wicked.
Yeah.
Which is a great example of, like, we knew the story from Dorothy's perspective.
Yes.
In The Wizard of Oz.
Right.
And the character it's the Wicked Witch of the West, isn't it?
Yes.
Right? Exists in that story.
Yep.
But we only see her story through Dorothy's eyes.
Yeah.
Now, I haven't seen the musical, and at time of recording, I'm watching the movie tomorrow.
Yep.
So I don't know anything about this musical other than
it's epic.
the Wicked Witch of the West's story.
And her bestie, Galinda.
That's right, yeah. As far as we're concerned, if we've only seen The Wizard of Oz, that's the only part of the story that we know, and so we make up assumptions and we fill in gaps.
Yep.
In the same way that if we just read Luke's Gospel, then we get Luke's perspective
That's
on Mary,
right.
as opposed to what Mary's story looks like from her perspective.
Yeah.
It's a really interesting tool that you can use when you're looking at scripture, is switch around who the quote-unquote main character is and try and experience a story again another time from a perspective that you may not have considered before. So putting yourself in Mary's shoes over that year of her life, like, we also don't get much about the 9 months that she's pregnant.
Not at all. No.
What was that like? Because like there's that first moment of, like, when she's told by the angel Gabriel that you've conceived and it's of the Holy Spirit and you're going to call the child Jesus and they'll be the Messiah.
Yep.
She has 9 months, and so does Joseph, to process that.
And why wasn't she stoned to death? That's the other thing.
Yeah, well,
she's pregnant, unmarried.
Yep.
And why wasn't she stoned to death? So
there's all sorts of gaps in that story that we can fill in.
So you know how I love the Christmas movies on Netflix?
Yeah.
There happened to be, while I'm scrolling the Netflix Christmas movies, a new show, and it's a movie-length thing, called Mary.
I'm going to look this thing up.
Now, it is quick to tell you that it is fantasy, not based on much fact. There's some fact in it, but it is fantasy and fiction, and it says that.
Is it the Anthony Hopkins one?
Yes.
Cool. I've just found it.
And I watched part of it, and I was fascinated. at the bits that hadn't occurred to me that I hadn't filled in Jonty. So in this fantasy depiction, what we do know is that Mary's father, Joachim, I think that's how you say his name, Joachim, and mum, Anne, they grew up, we know that Mary would have grown up in the second temple construction in Jerusalem. We think she's born around 18 BC. So that puts us, we know that King Herod was that bloodthirsty ruler and a suppressor of the Jewish faith. And we do presume that Herod would have heard grumblings about this baby that's going to be born because of this Isaiah prophecy.
Yeah, and Into the Word this week, last week, can't remember what time these come out, but we read about the Magi.
Yes.
And Herod hearing about the prophecy, or he knows the prophecy and sending off the Magi to try and gather some intel.
So he's probably hearing about the prophecy through the Pharisees and Sadducees of the day.
Yep.
And they would have been saying, well, it's going to be, this prophecy's coming. This new king is going to be born. So we know that paranoia and bloodthirsty nature of Herod was definitely a thing. We get to see that played out in Scripture. So, but when you think about it in the Mary narrative, we just go, baby in a manger, baby's being born, silent night, twinkling star, angels, enter the sheep and the shepherds. It's a happy story, we've got a baby. But there's shit going down, mate, in Jerusalem. Herod is probably putting Jewish people into like sort of labour camps to
100%.
Build this massive construction. And there would have been talk and gossip at the time. So in this depiction, in this movie, it answers all those things, albeit fictitious. We don't know it to be the truth. But knowing enough about the world and how the world operates, and humanity hasn't changed an awful lot, she meets this boy, or the father knows this beautiful boy, Joseph, who longs to have Mary as his betrothed. In the movie, asks the dad. But what the movie has set up for us is that Anne, the mother of Mary, has a visit from an angel. She's struggling to conceive. An angel comes to her and says to her, you will have a child. Angel comes to Joachim, Mary's father, and says, you will be blessed with a child, but you will have to give this child to the temple at the right time as your sacrifice, I suppose. I don't know if that's the right word, but by way of thanking the Lord for answering your prayers. So then Anne has Mary. The angel comes to her and said she's a special girl. She's going to be held for special things. She gets to an age, in the movie she looks around 12, and mum and dad take her to the prophetess at the temple to give her to the prophetess to be one of the young virgins in the temple. And this movie suggests that this is how Mary grew up. And then it also suggests then one day when she's washing her clothes by the river, Joseph sees her and he falls madly in love with her. An angel comes to him and says she is the daughter of Joachim of Nazareth, and he goes and finds the parents and asks for her hand in marriage. The mum and the dad get another visit by this angel to say, yes, this is what's to be in Mary's story, and they go and get Mary from the temple and they get betrothed. He finds out she's pregnant. the angel comes to him and says, don't worry, brother, everything's okay. We know the standard angel story that's depicted in this movie also. But then fast forward to the next bit, this great scene. Joseph is one of the carpenters working on the second temple, and that construction, which Herod is project manager of, and his mates say, have you heard the gossip? Have you heard the gossip? Your missus is knocked up, mate. You should stone her to death because she has brought great shame on you and your family. And then we see another shot of this, what looks like a stoning's about to take place of Mary, and Joseph comes in with the help of an angel to protect her and to protect her for this entire pregnancy. Now, that the movie says is fictitious and fantasy. And I was left wondering, how fictitious is it really? Because Joseph would have been ridiculed. The village people would have known. People are bastards. They gossip and say horrible things. They would have said horrible things that many hundreds of thousands of billions of, not that far ago, thousands of years ago. Humanity hasn't changed. I just think, is this something we can expect to actually have happened, even though it's not in the Bible? And it led me to wonder what else went on that we're not sure of, that's not depicted.
Odd Rev, again, he's getting lots of shout-outs.
Isn't
today.
he?
He talks a lot about the gaps in scriptural narrative and how we can use what today is often referred to as fan fiction to like explore some of those narrative gaps, and not in a way that's like, I'm going to rewrite the Bible.
No.
But in a way that goes, okay, I've got dot A and dot B in scripture.
How do we get there?
There's heaps of interesting stuff in there. Let's play, let's have fun, and let's construct some narratives and see what comes up. Not in any way of going like, I'm adding to the gospel canon, but like, there's Paul and then there's Jonty.
Yeah, that's right.
Like, but in a way that allows us to actually think through some of these things, because there's texture in there that we can actually like get some good stuff out of.
Yeah.
In a way that is scriptural, because we're just connecting dots.
Yep.
And there are lessons that we can learn from that and things that we can pull out of that. So like this movie being an example of that, or any other exercise of, I wonder what happened between point A and point B in the Advent narrative. And
that's beautiful, Jonty, because you suggested that where was she during this pregnancy period of time? There's no dot leading or telling us anything about that time.
We know they travelled to Bethlehem at some point.
Yep, we know she visited Elizabeth. But this movie that I watched suggests that she spent time with Elizabeth through her pregnancy, and watched and learnt from Elizabeth. With John. Yeah.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense.
It does, doesn't it? Many women in the day would have been sent off to an aunt in the country.
Yeah.
If even back in the 1950s and 60s, if the young girl had fallen pregnant, we'll just ship you off to Auntie Mary in Orange, and you can have the kid there and then put it up for adoption.
Yeah.
That sort of stuff happened. Why would it be any different?
Yeah.
And
even like there's the context of that story with the state being hostile to the Jewish faith.
Oh, yeah.
Which like has much changed there. We look at what's happening in Australia at the moment. I
know. And that's a really poignant point, Jonty, because when I flicked open the news today, Australia has been accused of being an anti-Semitic country and not safe for Jews to come to at the moment, because they've been advised that that the government and the police force cannot fully protect them.
And this is in the wake of there was a firebombing of a temple?
Yes, of a synagogue in Melbourne.
Yeah.
And it is just absolutely frightening. So, Jonty, what the news actually says is that Jewish people have been warned to reconsider non-essential travel to Australia amid heightened anti-Semitism. That makes me so sad to think that our country is being painted in this light. And I find it hard to comment on because our local synagogue is in the same street as our church.
Oh, Wallara, very densely populated
with Jewish
people.
Yeah, and we love them, and we're all in this community together.
Yeah.
And I don't get to see much unrest. Having had said that, while I was in the US on annual leave, somebody was arrested for writing horrific anti-Semitic things on the local restaurant, Chiswick, next door to our church, and on cars just on Ocean Street. So there is a wave of this going on, and I just they're calling it the Melbourne event as a terrorist incident, and I would agree that it is. And if so, what are we going to do about this? You know, it's so upsetting and disturbing to think that people would think, feel and behave and act out of these ideologies.
Yeah, I have felt a similar way about American politics for a long time, and it's been a difficult thing for me to come to terms with, is that things that I view as very extreme and very, I was going to say left or right, but not with any political meaning behind those two words, of centre, like so far off the beaten track of like hateful, extreme views aren't actually that extreme.
Yeah.
And that I find that really, really confronting, whether it's political or religious or otherwise, coming to terms with the fact that extremism is on the rise, has been on the rise for a long time.
Yeah.
I find really, really worrying and disheartening because I don't know what to do about that and like what can one person do about that. I often go back to something that Simon Hansford told us a couple of years ago on this podcast, that our only job as Christians is to be an advocate of hope.
Yeah.
I don't know how to do that sometimes when you go, oh, this country surely isn't anti-Semitic. We've just been labelled to the rest of the world as unsafe for Jewish people to enter.
To the whole world.
Yeah.
It's really embarrassing.
Yeah.
It's
embarrassing,
me sick.
but it's like, I find that really confronting because, like you say, we work
in the middle of it.
In a densely populated Jewish community.
Yeah.
That's no longer a hypothetical. That's we are working and living in places where there are people who it is, according to our government and according to policy, is now technically unsafe for them.
Yeah. What
would Jesus have to say about that becomes a very practical and confronting question, because if you read through Scripture, Jesus very rare, and in fact never, does nothing in the face of marginalised people being oppressed.
Yeah.
He's always on the side of the oppressed and always on the side of the marginalised and always on the side of the people being pushed to the edges. And so then the question becomes for us no longer a hypothetical, but actually a really pressing question of like, okay, so what the fuck are you going to do about it, Jonty?
Yeah.
Like if you follow Jesus, what are you going to do about it? It's not like, and part of me, I wrestle with this all the time. Like, is it enough to sit behind a microphone in an air-conditioned room and release conversations to people? And that's not to say that this isn't worthwhile, because I think it is. Otherwise, we wouldn't still be doing it. But it gets to a point where it's like, it really does feel insignificant in the face of rising extremism.
And Christmas time, this baby that was born, just a shout out, did you know that he was a Jew? Jesus was a Jew.
He was circumcised on 8 days after his birth.
Yes, that's right.
He was Jewish.
That's right.
No, he wasn't. Okay, what was he? Presbyterian? Good one.
Yeah,
Idiot.
I know. People think he was a Christian. I get that a lot, Jonty.
There's a Louis C.K. bit
Jesus
where he's
was
like...
the Christian.
Jesus being a Christian and suddenly realising that he's wearing the cross necklace. Oh, that's what that's for. Oh, I'm the guy on the thing. Like, of course he was Jewish. Idiot.
Oh, it's so interesting, isn't it? Yeah, I think in the light of Christmas, I'm a cup half full person, but when I read that news, it makes me get so mad and so upset with our humanity. And we just need to, if each of us just act out of love at Christmas time and always just respond in love.
Advocates of hope.
Yep, just be that light into what can be darkness at times and be an example of love by not saying mean things about people, by not acting, not being a dick, as you often say. Just behave peacefully and kindly to one another and extravagantly to one another in love. And do something for somebody that you wouldn't normally do, somebody that maybe does give you the shits this Christmas. Maybe it's a neighbour that drives you batshit crazy because they're just one of those people. Mate, give them a hamper, pop a hamper on their doorstep and just say, Merry Christmas from whoever you are. You know, invite the dodgy auntie, uncle or sibling to your Christmas event this year. And just love on them. You may not feel like they deserve love. Just love them anyway. Just love them because Jesus would want you to do that. And I think peace and hope actually starts with us. And we can become as infectious as COVID, but with love and hope into other humanity by being the hope this Christmas. That's my message. I just kind of want to cough and breathe that over everybody so everybody catches it, you know, because if we be that love, then maybe this anti-Semitic vibe that's going on in our country can just melt away a little bit like the witch under Dorothy's shoes underneath the house and melt away. Yeah. Amen.
You've got a future in preaching, I reckon. Thought about looking into it?
I wonder what Mary knew, going back there, circle back. I tell you one thing she did know. This is what I reckon. And it's like I've stolen it from the lyrics of the song. I reckon when she kissed that little kid, because she would have, doesn't say she planted a big kiss on him. We know she would have, and we know she would have taken him straight to her breast for food, but she would have kissed him. And she would have known that when she kissed that little baby, I wonder if what went through her mind, I am kissing the face of God. I wonder. Merry Christmas.
We're going to jump across now after having heard about advocates of hope and looking after other people and being love in the world. Last year we heard from Samaritan's Purse. We're going to jump over now and hear from someone else about what they're doing to spread hope and life and love and how you might even be able to contribute to that. So we'll be right back after this interview. Well, we're joined on the podcast by a guest today, Cory Schut from Wesley Mission. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, you want to? Yeah, no worries. It's actually Schut.
Oh, Schut.
Oh,
I'm so glad I said that because I just assumed with the spelling.
Yeah. So I get it all the time.
Yeah. Where can I ask where the name comes from?
Dutch in origin. Yeah. And then, so I can trace my great-great-grandparents as immigrants to the U.S. from the Netherlands. And then farming communities in the middle of the U.S. have a lot of Dutch influence. So there you go.
There you go. I'm glad I asked because I
sure
have known. Yeah. So we're having a chat to you today because you're part of the team at Wesley Mission. Maybe for people that don't even know what Wesley Mission is, let us in on a bit of that before we get into.
Wesley Mission started as the York Street Methodist Church, which became the Central Methodist Mission. And then as it grew, it became one of the largest providers for foster care, especially, and then aged care and a lot of employment services, a lot of other stuff, disability services. And so now we have about 2,000 employees. And we also have Congregational Life, which has 8 different congregations. Some of those culturally and linguistically diverse, and others of those just kind of, the one that I'm involved in is the international congregation. So, yeah, we've got people from it's many different countries that worship together in the international congregation.
Yeah,
Nutshell.
Cool. And obviously, Wesley, for people that do know what Wesley is, are known for quite a lot of outreach stuff and program stuff. We're having a chat to you just before Christmas. Maybe we start there. I know Christmas Day is a big time for you guys over at Wesley. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, so Christmas Day, we've got our church service, which is actually a really unique one. It's the only one where we get every congregation together in the same room.
That's cool.
Yeah, so we have, so we do a lot of things in Indonesian, Chinese, and English. And we sing Joy to the World at the end. Kind of every year we end with Joy to the World. And it is, it just swells, and it's a really,
wow,
it's a great moment. But yeah, so we've got a Christmas Day service at 10 a.m. And then after that, we have a community lunch, which has taken different forms throughout the years. But right now in its current form, what it looks like is we set tables for 380 people in the Wesley Conference Center, which is like just people just in different rooms all over the place. So there's no like from the front stage or anything. It's just like these rooms full of tables and chairs and a huge buffet lunch. And the buffet lunch now is one where it is, what we do is we offer it's an elaborate lunch. It's not the least we can do. It's the best we can do.
It's like generous hospitality, isn't it?
That's right. Yeah. So for people who can afford to pay for lunch, we ask them to pay, but, just to support the lunch. And other people give generously above that because they want to support what we're doing there. But with over 300 people from all walks of life, it's a really unique Christmas Day where it's kind of a picture of the New Testament church where they were slave and free in the same room sharing communion, right? Sharing that communal meal. And now it's not slavery, obviously now, but it is from every sphere and every walk of life in every ethnicity. And it's a real interesting cross section of Sydney because you've got people who are sleeping rough all the way up to people who run their own businesses and everything and sitting around the same table. And we're intentional about that. We want people to sit around the same table with people who are not like you, so that you get a flavor of what it's like as a church family, as the body of Christ. And people who are coming for a Christmas lunch at Wesley, a lot of people, I don't know if it's a majority, but a lot of people are there because they don't have a family to do Christmas with for whatever reason. And families break down and life happens, right? Life happens. And so for some people, Christmas Day is a really tough day. And having a place to be where you feel like, oh, I've been invited, and it's a beautiful meal and it's a great environment. Sometimes that can trigger some emotions, and people need some pastoral care in that space. And so there's people there to care for people. And it's just a big feast kind of day. So that's Christmas Day for us. And in the lead up to it, we have some family services on the 22nd of December. So our congregation does family services, and really what we want to do is create a place where you would be happy to invite friends or a family that doesn't go to church. Hey, we've got a Christmas service. It's a family-friendly kids Christmas service. Do you want to go? Do you want to come along to that? So we want to create a space where it feels like a carols event, but it's our Christmas service, and we really want it to be something that people can invite other people to. So yeah, that's our 22nd and 25th of December kind of events.
That's extraordinary, Cory. I did my very first placement when I was studying to be a minister, and my first placement was with Keith Garner and Rick Dacey at Wesley Mission in the evening service. And it was absolutely one of the greatest gifts I was ever given in ministry, to be able to mix with all demographics, from homeless people, sleeping rough. I made friends with all of them on first name basis, and got to minister there to a barrister and a doctor that I met that was in that congregation. So like you said, the depth and breadth that crosses all of community coming together in this one place. It's a very special gift that you have in bringing people together there. It's it feels a little bit like Wayside or even Exodus, which are our poster children and services of the Uniting Church. You do an absolutely phenomenal gig.
Yeah. And right now our City Heart community, City Heart is we have a 1 p.m. service, and that's called City Heart, and it's also like they do City Heart Tuesday, and now we do City Heart Wednesday, and basically it's just growing in these time slots because it's a place for people to have community. And what I think is really fascinating about this is, like, sometimes when we meet other people, or because we do the service that I lead, we're doing a community meal. It's a Christmas community meal at one of the local government housing providers. They have a interaction with us in the Salvation Army, and because we're in partnership in the city of Bride, we've got a group of probably 12 to 15 pastors in the city of Bride that work together. And one of the things that we do is we run community dinners, and so we do that with the local provider for government housing, and we use their community room, and then we just bring the food, and so all the residents come and they share a meal. And it's really interesting because, like, at the beginning, our people are kind of like, okay, I'll do something for the less fortunate, right? They have that kind of mentality. But then by the second time they're going, it's like, oh, I was wrong about that. This is just dinner with friends. This is just dinner with my neighbors. Yes. And for some people, like, this is the only conversation they have with a human being all week.
Yep.
And it's like, we have lost the art. In our culture, we're drifting away from face-to-face communication, right? We're getting all of our interaction on a screen. And I think the church really needs to open our eyes to what we have, in that we have what people actually need is that face-to-face encounter. And so when we do that community meal in that community space, which is their space, right? The residents' community hall, we've seen some beautiful just interactions. And the people coming, they're like, oh, where are you from? And then we tell them we're from Wesley, and then they'll tell us their whole spiritual journey, because that just is an open door, and we go right to the spiritual really quick. And one of the best stories out of that was, there was a couple who, they've been going month after month, and there was a lady who was coming, and she was 83 and her husband is 90, and she was praying for her husband because her husband's not a Christian, doesn't know Jesus yet. And she's done all she can, but then that's all she can do, right? And so she's praying for her husband, and he won't go to church, and he doesn't go out much anymore. He's 90. And so she's praying, God, can you send somebody to him? Can you send somebody to us to tell him about Jesus? And so I went to this community dinner, and I saw this couple at the beginning, didn't see him the rest of the night, saw him at the end. I said, where were you? And they said, oh, we were invited to have dinner with two of the residents in their home, and they treated us to this meal, and we had this opportunity to share Jesus with the husband.
Wow.
Because this lady's like, who's gonna come? How is God gonna do this? Right? She's praying that God would come to some cul-de-sac in Ryde and to this community. And the thing is, they were Mandarin speakers. So they needed somebody who's Mandarin speaking to find them somehow. And so our guys came along to the couple that were Mandarin speaking, just connected with her. She invited them for dinner. And so this community meal opened up another community meal, right? This meal with their family. And they were able to share Jesus with that family. And who knows how that journey is going to end, right? But God's answering prayer through that.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, that would have never happened if the pastors in the city of Ryde did not eat lunch together every month.
How beautiful. Right? That is
And
beautiful.
so we prioritize that. We eat lunch together. We build relationship. And that's been going for like 6 years. And so much good fruit is coming out of it. That's just an example of it. But it's just, what God is up to.
It's such a good story. It's such a good news story, because we often don't hear the detail of God's orchestration in and through our lives like that. It's such beautiful detail. Thanks for sharing that. It's just absolutely wonderful. And I certainly hope this Christmas time that God orchestrates the most amazing things in and through Wesley, using the obedience and the love that Wesley spills out into the community. Our prayer is that God uses that to bless people, and that you guys can then share the good news with people that don't know, you know. It's really great stuff.
And like we said at the beginning, this is obviously coming out just before Christmas, so if you're listening to this on day of release, there's still time to get involved and head over and have lunch and engage with what you guys are doing over there. But there's more that happens throughout the whole year, and we'll definitely we'll have you in to do have a full length chat in the new year sometime as well. But just briefly before we send you off, what are the if people are looking for ways to connect in with Wesley and their outreach and any of their programs, are there 2 or 3 highlights that you want to share with people they could maybe mull over in that weird island between months that is January that doesn't really exist in Australia?
It really is like a sprint to Christmas Day, and then it's like everybody just collapses on the other side of the finish line. I think if people want to help out, like, they can always go onto the Wesley Mission website, and we've got volunteering that's available, either corporate volunteering or individual volunteering. And there's just a range of different ways to volunteer. If you want to help out in an area where you're the hands and feet of Jesus to the marginalized, especially, then I would say we're always open to people coming along to City Heart, and in those kind of settings, like, people love to have a chat. They love to feel like, man, this is my community, this is my home. We start City Heart every time with saying who you are and welcome, right? And so it can be your first time, but you're welcoming people, right?
Beautiful.
Because everybody says, "Oh, my name's Cory. Welcome to City Heart." Welcome. And that's just a way to underline that everybody's welcome. And it's like, that would be a really good way if you wanted to help out in a really kind of like gospel-centric kind of way, like shed the grace of God abroad kind of way. And that I'm not sure of how we're, because we haven't even gotten there yet, when we're taking breaks and all of that with those services, but I'd imagine that they would keep running because other than the week after Christmas when everything shuts down, I think those will start back up again, because just it's such a needed place. So that'll be a place that people can help out. we may still be handing out some Christmas hampers after Christmas. Got hundreds of them to hand out, and so and that happens when people donate gifts, items, and stuff, and then we pack it in hampers and give those out. One of the beautiful things about that is that a lot of those items have been donated by people who will probably, in fact, receive one. It's amazing the generosity of people who are doing it off knowing how much, a tin of bags means to them. And if they have a chance, they're going to donate that.
Wow.
And so it's not an insignificant amount donated by people who you would say, oh, well, they're donating, because they have a generous heart and they have something to give, so they're going to give it because they know it's going to matter. So that's beautiful. But all throughout the year, we're always receiving seek out. But we went away from this idea of like handing out bags of food without first engaging in a relationship and offering prayer, offering connection first. And that's been a journey at Wesley. Like, used to be like you come and you fill out a form and you get a bag, and so you can have 2 bags a month or something like that. It used to be like that. And now it's very much like we're much more focused on creating community and a place where people belong, and we can pray for each other and just be together first. So food's involved. Food's always used, always given out. But the focus is on people first.
Beautiful. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks so much.
No
and if people do want to, like you say, get involved or suss out more of what's going on, check the website out. There's all the stuff you need to know is on there.
Yeah, or just pop in.
Yeah.
Right?
Come say hi.
Yep. Pop in on a Tuesday or a Wednesday or on a Sunday. Because there's something about being there where you go, oh, this is what it's like. A website can't do that. And that's why I talk about like in person. That's the power of being in person. Yeah. So.
And Cory, at your service in Ryde, what time's it on a Sunday?
Yeah, we're at 10 a.m. on Sundays. We currently, it's a little bit tricky for us. We're meeting at Excelsior College, but they have a shutdown period that goes through January. So we'll be combining in the city throughout January. And then we'll be back at Excelsior College, and then we'll be moving again, probably to a more permanent location. So that'll be great.
That's exciting. So watch that space.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks for chatting. We really appreciate your time, and Merry Christmas, Cory.
Yeah. Merry Christmas. Enjoy.
We'll have another chat, hopefully in the new year sometime. We'll talk to you then.
All right.
Thanks to Cory for that. If all the details for that, if you want to get involved in any of the stuff they're doing over there, all down below. Do get involved. I think it's a really good. Now we did this last year, but it's a good time of year, any time of year really, to get involved in helping the lives of other people.
Definitely.
So if that has prompted you, if anywhere in your life to look after other people, be the hands and feet a little bit more.
Yeah, and care for those that maybe aren't being cared for. That's really important.
Yeah.
Because it's always easy, isn't it, to care for the ones in our families or the ones that we like or the ones that smell nice or the ones that are generous. That's super simple. But why don't you stretch yourself this Christmas?
Yeah.
Go and do something outrageous and love on somebody that you wouldn't normally love on.
Yeah. And I just want to circle back as well to the stuff we talked about with Blue Christmas.
Yeah.
Partly because it's going to be, I'm putting that in practice this year as well. Try and be aware of the people in your life that Christmas might be a rough time for.
Yeah.
And reach out to them. Like
gold.
It's like we were saying before, it can be a really weird time of juxtaposition of conflicting feelings. So yeah, just even if there's one person in your life that you kind of go, I reckon this Christmas might be a bit rough for this person. Reach out to them, go have a beer with them, have a coffee, have a Boxing Day, sit in front of the cricket and chat like whatever it is, like, because there are, like we say, there are heaps and heaps and heaps and heaps and heaps of people that Christmas is actually really difficult for a whole bunch of different reasons. And if that is you as well, if Christmas is really difficult for you this year, reach out to someone. There's no reason for you to do that by yourself.
Yeah.
Reach out.
Beautiful.
To the people around you.
Merry Christmas, brother.
Merry Christmas. That just about does. I think
It's time for that cold glass of champagne and that long neck.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So we'll be back next week for our last episode of the year on New Year's Eve, where we're going to be doing some audience Q&A stuff.
Can't wait.
And looking back at the year and looking forward to next year a little bit as well. Before we wrap up, I just want to very quickly let all you good people know that we have some live shows planned for next year. By the time this episode comes out, the registration link will be live. So we would love you to come along to Taramara Uniting Church on, I believe it's the 23rd of February, with special guest Will Small from Spiritual Misfits. And if you can't make that one, April 6th at the church you were talking to us about before, it's at Matt's in Borkham Hills, April 6th in the evening with Dr. Ali Robinson.
Amazing.
It doesn't stop there. We have a whole bunch more shows planned for next year, so keep an eye out for those dates and guests as they continue to arrive. We have some really exciting ones planned between after that for the rest of the year. Links for that down below as well. If you want to be involved, come and hang out with us, come chat to us, come to a live show, eat food with us. We love doing them. So hopefully we'll see you there. I think that's all.
It's a lot.
All we have to chat about today.
Chat.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Yeah, have a good one.
Just underlining everything that we've already said. Reach out to people, be good to each other, and have a good Christmas.
Celebration.
Yeah. All right. We'll see you guys next week. Merry Christmas.
This is a prayer for the people who want to give up, who have been hurt beyond repair and cannot bear to see your face in anything. Find peace in letting go of the guilt that isn't yours, and find hope in understanding. Life is not a game you have to win. Forgiveness overwhelming, salvation undeserving.